Hello, guys. Welcome to the tech discussion. If you're listening on my YouTube channel, this is a tech discussion. It's a segment that's a part of my podcast, and so we obviously talk tech in here. And so, since I don't have the phones on hand, I'm talking about the specifications and how they compare to each other. And for those who are listening on the podcast, obviously you know how this goes. So today we're going to be talking about the OnePlus 8T, where it is as a phone, where does it stand, how does it compare to previous OnePlus phones, and is it kind of a recommendation that is obviously a proper recommendation? And we're going to talk about the Pixel 5, and we're going to talk about how it compares to the OnePlus, and also just in general how the Pixel 5 kind of stands in the market and really where it's at. And at the very end, kind of the part three, we're going to be talking about the iPhone mini slash iPhone 12 because, again, there's so much stuff that we need to go over. I figured we might as well kind of combine both of them because honestly, the iPhone mini and the iPhone 12, uh, they're practically identical except for screen sizes and sort of battery life. But I'll get more into that as we go. So the first segment or the first part of this segment, we're talking about the OnePlus 8T. So this phone was obviously released today, and so I've been watching a lot of reviews on this phone, and I've been getting the same vibe, almost similar to that of the Pixel 5, in the sense that they're not worthy upgrades. They're not anything exciting. They're nothing worth having any sort of hype about that. Again, they're nothing special. And honestly, to be quite honest, it's true, There's really not much of an upgrade, or not much that warrants an upgrade. And there's not really something that exciting, nothing new really, when it comes to internals. And it's just something that it's unexciting. It's really a pointless phone, almost in a way that there was almost really no reason to kind of launch this phone. So we're talking, or both phones, Pixel 5 and OnePlus 8T. So the first segment, right, we're talking about the OnePlus 8T. So this phone was obviously released today, and it's going to be kind of shipping in October 16th ish, or its full release kind of thing. So when we're talking about the build quality, right off the bat, it's a very good build quality. Uh, they did not mention the glass, but I'm almost positive that it's Gorilla Glass 5 or 6 on the front and back, and you do get an aluminum frame, so you do get some pretty good build quality on this. For the display, you get a fluid 6.55-inch 120 hertz HDR 10 plus certified display. So you get a pretty good size display with it being 6.5 inches. And you have an 87% screen to body ratio. And one thing that I should mention about the display is that it's not curved like previous OnePlus phones. This phone is actually flat. So you do get some bezel on the sides, and that's really interesting, to be honest, because um for years, OnePlus has had the curved display. Now all of a sudden they have a flat display. So depending on what your personal preference is, for me, I like curved displays, but I know for a lot of people, they do prefer the flat display. So depending on your thing, determines whether you're happy or not. And so this resolution on the display is 1080p by 2400 with a 20 by 9 aspect ratio, 402 ppi density for those who are into that. And and so sorry. Um, for the platform, for the OS, the OnePlus is running Android 11 out of the box with Oxygen OS 11 out of the box. And um, one thing I should mention is that a lot of people or reviewers right now, because they're the only ones with the phones, they're a little bit kind of confused or not so happy, or just kind of confused, yeah, that Oxygen OS 11 is very oddly similar. It's getting some Samsung One UI vibes because with the new Oxygen OS 11, it seems that OnePlus has gotten some of the cues from Samsung's One UI and kind of implemented them into their OS. And so now a lot of reviewers have been saying it kind of reminds them of the OS system on Samsung, even though it's OnePlus, because OnePlus for years has had a near stock experience, and that's what people loved about it: the great price, good hardware, and near stock software. So that's what they did like, but now they're kind of transferring into this kind of segment where they want to kind of steer away from or from stock Android, which I don't mind too much as long as they don't go too far. Just like the reviewer said, as long as they don't go too far, it should be fine. So it does have Android 11 out of the box, and it for the chipset, we have a flagship processor with the Snapdragon 865. So obviously it's not the 65 plus that we've been seeing in phones right now, but either way, honestly, to be completely honest, there is no real or no kind of yeah, for me, there's not really a convincing difference between the 865 and the 865 plus. Yeah, 10% maybe improved, but there really isn't much there to offer over the 865, which is, again, it's still a flagship processor no matter what. So you will get some pretty good performance out of this because obviously latest or second latest flagship processor. Now you do get the Adreno 650 GPU, so that's one of the latest graphics, so that's great for gaming. For the memory card, you don't get an S or a card slot. You get three configurations though. I mean two, sorry, two configurations. Although on a side note, here in the US, we only get one version only. In other parts, you get two versions. So here in the US, depending on which one you get, if you get the 256 gigabytes of internal storage with 12 gigabytes of RAM, that will cost you around $730. But if you choose to import it or get it from somewhere else with 128 and 8 gigabytes of RAM, it will cost around $600. So it costs $100 cheaper. And so that's pretty cool that obviously it's a little bit of a hassle to import a phone. So I don't know how much people are going to want to do that. But either way, there's two options. But the one that is sold here in the US is going to be the 256 with 12 gigabytes of RAM. And obviously, they're going to raise the price on that. And you get the latest and fastest UFS 3.1 storage on board. So storage won't be much of a problem, especially with 256 gigabytes available. Now with the camera, you get 4 cameras. And this time with the design of the camera that I should mention is that they've shifted the cameras over to the left side of the phone. So if we've seen previous OnePlus devices, we've seen that they've had that center kind of alignment on their phones. Well, they've shifted that and made it from a long oval into kind of a circle rectangle kind of thing. It's a soft curved rectangle. It reminds me a little bit of the A51 and the A71, as well as a little bit of the S20 Plus. Kind of, I'm getting a little bit of a vibe from that, with the camera module. Uh, you do get that similar design. Obviously, it's not identical, but it's very similar. And so within that one, one of the major changes to the camera setups is that they don't have a mac or a telephoto lens, and so they switched it out for a macro lens. So we have 4 cameras on the back. The first one is a 48 megapixel f1.7 aperture, dual pixel autofocus, iOS lens. So you do get optical image stabilization on this. So that's good to see there. The second one is a 16 megapixel f2.2, 123 degree field of view ultra wide lens. So you are getting an ultra wide lens. This is the first ever or the biggest ultra wide lens that we've seen on OnePlus phones. Obviously, this is a normal for Samsung and Apple because they do have ultra wides that are this wide. So this is obviously this is an improvement from previous OnePlus devices, but not something to really write home about. The third camera is a 5 megapixel f2.4 macro lens, so you will be getting a little bit of an upgrade there from the normal 2 megapixel macro lens. So you will be getting some pretty decent photos that are not entirely garbage from this macro lens. And then the last one is a 2 megapixel f2.4 depth sensing lens. So not really going to play much of a factor when it comes to photos, at least not a big change or, something like that. Anyway, so for video recording, you get 4K 30 or 60 frames per second, and 1080p, you get 30 or 60 frames per second as well. You get auto HDR and obviously that optical image stabilization. For the selfie camera, you get a 16 megapixel f2.4 normal primary lens with auto HDR and has the capabilities of recording 1080p at 30. So you don't kind of get that versatility with 4K or even 60 frames per second for 1080p. So you lose out on that, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. When it comes to the speakers, there is a stereo speakers on board, so that's good. There is no headphone jack, so for those who are loving the headphone jack, it's no longer with us. When it comes to the Bluetooth, they have, or the phone, the 8T has the 5.1 Bluetooth, and so you are getting the latest and greatest Bluetooth. You do have NFC, um, and so when it comes to the sensors, you do have a fingerprint under the display, and it is optical. So you will be getting that OnePlus fingerprint speed. For the battery, you get a big 4,500 milliamp hour battery. It has 65-watt charging, which is just insane. You can get 100% in 39 minutes. Now, this is what they advertised. Uh, I think I got one confirmation in one of the reviews that I watched. He did say that he got pretty much around that same kind of battery life or battery charge after 39, 40 minutes. So that's really cool that they can do that. 65-watt charging is absolutely insane. Um, so it's good to see that they do have that. But there is no wireless charging. There is no reverse wireless charging. So you'll kind of lose out on that. So that's unfortunate. You get the phone in two colors, lunar silver and aquamarine green. Sorry, that was a little difficult for me to say. And honestly, my personal favorite is the aquamarine. It's a beautiful color. I personally really like it. It's a frosted glass on the back, so you kind of have that kind of vibe going on there. And so now that we've talked about it, how does it compare to previous OnePlus devices? Now, this one, when it comes to the OnePlus lineup, there are two to three phones that they release every year. They released one phone called the OnePlus 8, right? Earlier this year in the springtime, and then maybe an 8 Pro. And then later down the line, they kind of release the T, right? This whole lineup where it's kind of an improvement from the normal 8 and the normal 8 Pro. You kind of get a little bit of a spec bump, a little bit, nothing spectacular, nothing groundbreaking. And so this is what the 8 or what the T series stands for. A little bit of an upgrade down the line later in the year, fall, which is where we are right now. So that's kind of the breakdown. Usually it's not a guaranteed thing that OnePlus does, so there isn't always an 8 or there isn't always a T version of their phones, but for the majority of the time there is a T version. So last year we had the OnePlus 7 and the OnePlus 7T as well as the OnePlus 7 Pro. And so we had those three phones throughout the year, and so now we see that we have the 8 and the 8 Pro, and now we have the 8T here. So you have a lot of variety to choose from, but honestly, I heard from a lot of reviewers that this isn't worth what it's asking for. So it's better to go with last year's 7T or earlier this year's OnePlus 8 and or a Pro. You can go with either of those phones. You will not be missing out on what the 8T has to offer. It's really basically nothing except for a redesign on the back cameras and uh, I mean the cameras as well in the sense of hardware. It's really not much of a difference to kind of say that this is better than previous OnePlus devices. So you don't have to worry about that. And so due to its 600 to $700 price tag, this is why I'm comparing it to the Pixel 5. So this is the next segment, which we're talking about the Google Pixel 5 and the Google Pixel and the OnePlus 8T and how they stack up against each other, because the Pixel 5 is $700, which is the retail price here in the US. And so obviously both of these phones are sold here in the US. But here's where it's interesting, because the OnePlus can actually be a little cheaper. Like I told you guys, if you go with certain other markets, you can get 128 with 8 gigabytes of RAM. And so that'll cost $100 less than the 256 model, which is kind of sold here in the US. And that's the only version that we're getting. And the OnePlus 8T completely obliterates the Pixel 5, in my opinion, and the opinion of other reviewers. Let me tell you why. To start off, the build quality is better. You get glass on the front, glass on the back, and aluminum frame, where on the Pixel 5 you get an aluminum frame and it's boring, it's dull, it's not as premium as the glass back. 2, you get an or actually you one thing that actually I'll go over the differences later. For the second one, with the OnePlus T, you have a 120 hertz display, whereas on the Pixel 5, you get a 90 hertz. So it's still an upgrade over the 90. I would much rather have 120. 2, depending on your personal preference, this one has a bigger screen, so you have more real estate to work with. And let's see, when it comes to the processor, you get a Snapdragon 865 Plus, or 865, sorry, a normal 865 with the OnePlus T, 8T, versus the Pixel 5. You only have a mid-range processor of the Snapdragon 765G. So you are getting a better improvement, a better processor overall with the OnePlus 8T. Another thing, you're getting better GPU performance because it's with the Pixel 5, you're getting the Adreno 620. With the OnePlus 8T, you're getting the Adreno 650. You do get more configurations in the sense of storage and RAM options if you're comparing it to other markets as well. But if you're comparing it to here in the US, you do get a better deal with 256 gigabytes of internal storage with 12 gigabytes of RAM on the OnePlus 8T. And you get faster UFS 3.1 storage compared to the Pixel 5's UFS 2.1 storage. So you definitely get a very good difference there when it comes to storage. And with the cameras, this one has 4 versus the Pixel 5, it only has 2. Sure, quality could definitely play a factor in here, but the versatility is what beats the Pixel 5. When it comes to the camera sensors on the front, the selfie cameras, you get a higher resolution camera on the OnePlus 8T versus the Pixel 5 that only has an 8 megapixel camera compared to the OnePlus's 16 megapixel selfie camera. So you are getting a lot better things on the OnePlus 8T compared to the OnePlus or to the Pixel 5. You even get better Bluetooth. You get a better in-display fingerprint or a fingerprint, it's kind of cooler when it's underneath the display, but on the rear it's kind of outdated, and so it's just not, I don't know, it's not that it's not ideal, it's just that it's not pretty for me, and for a lot of people. And so when it comes to the battery, you get a better battery on the OnePlus 8T. You get a 4500 one, whereas on the Pixel 5, you only get a 4080 milliamp hour battery, and you get faster charging on the OnePlus 8T with 65-watt charging versus the Pixel 5, which has 18-watt charging. And so again, like I told you guys, the reason why I'm comparing them is because they are the same price, and they're around the same price if you get it in other markets as well, with the OnePlus 8T being a little bit cheaper by $100. It's in that same price bracket. So uh obviously you are getting a lot more. One of the main statements by the Pixel 5 is Google tried to do the most that they possibly could with the least amount of resources possible. I mean, an aluminum back, only two cameras, that isn't really anything exciting. Um, Mid-range processor, a dull design overall, in my opinion. Not No wireless, or you do get wireless charging. You don't get fast wireless charging, and you don't have a big battery. You get decent 18-watt fast charging. Uh, you get kind of fairly decent selfie camera. I mean, all of these things, you only get one configuration with 128 gigabytes of internal storage, which, I mean, I guess should be decent for most people. I think the only thing that the Pixel 4, or the Pixel 5, sorry, has kind of over the Pixel, or over the OnePlus 8T, is water resistance. With the Pixel 5, you get IP68 water and dust resistance up to 1.5 meters for 30 minutes. Whereas the OnePlus 8T, you don't have water resistance, but I guess it makes up for it by having a little bit of protection, because with the OnePlus 8T, you do have a little bit of protection in the ports and in the buttons. You have a little bit of a rubber tip inside of there to protect it from splashes and stuff like that. So I guess it makes up for it, but it's not really comforting knowing that it's not fully IP water and dust resistant. It's not rated. So that's probably the only advantage it has over the OnePlus T. And so personally, if we were to choose between these two phones, I would go with the OnePlus T. It has a better camera design, or better camera versatility for those who are Pixel fanboys or Pixel users or Pixel lovers. You do get some pretty high quality pictures, but that's it. That's the only thing that the camera can do. Good pictures. Whereas on the OnePlus, you get pretty good video, pretty good pictures, stills. You get a little bit versatility with the macro and the depth sensing, right? You get a little bit more. And with the ultra wide as well, you can have that as well. I mean, I know the Pixel has it too, but the versatility, it's less on the Pixel 5. And another thing, again, the design is so much better than the Pixel 5's. The screen is better than the Pixel 5's. The battery is better. The charging is better. So the OnePlus T just, it doesn't, it kind of just blows the Pixel 5 out of the water in the sense of everything that it has to offer. But when it's compared to the rest of the OnePlus phones, it's not enough of an upgrade for you guys. For the OnePlus 8 and the OnePlus 8 Pro, those were fantastic phones. There's no need to upgrade from that phone to the OnePlus T. The OnePlus T is nothing special. There's nothing groundbreaking about it, so you don't have to upgrade. So that's something good. Honestly, just like if you guys know who Jerry Rig Everything is, he said, unless your phone is falling apart or dead, there's no reason to get the OnePlus 8T. And honestly, I can agree with him. There's really no point. If you have money to burn, and I am, I can't tell you what to buy or what not to buy with your hard-earned money. You can do with what you want with your money. If you wanna buy the AT, go ahead and do it. I'm not gonna stop you, and I can't stop you. You know? You are the one in charge of your money, and if you wanna spend it, then by all means, go ahead, you know? And I love tech. I would love to buy tech, and I know that purchasing new tech, new phones is something that's very cool and exciting, and I personally love it. I would do the same. Honestly, I don't have that much money to burn, you know, buying these new phones every time. But again, as a tech YouTuber, you would do that, and it's fun and it's exciting, but it's not worth it to the consumer for them to do it as well, unless they just want to because, the excitement or, whatever. It just is what it is, right? You can buy it if you want to, even if you need it or you don't. I'm not gonna stop you, but I'm not gonna tell you to go do it, obviously. But it is what it is. So I'm glad I got halfway, halfway through. Okay, we're doing good. So the third section of my kind of comparison or this kind of tech discussion. So we're talking about the iPhone 12 mini that actually it starts at around $700 kind of, if I remember correctly, that it started around $699. So actually, now that I came out with this comparison, the Apple iPhone 12 mini can actually a little bit, I think, destroy the iPhone or the Apple, I mean, the OnePlus 8T. Because now that we're talking about comparisons, it is, this OnePlus 8T is $700, and you can get it for $600 if you get it in a smaller storage configuration. But since we're getting here in the US, the higher storage model, therefore paying $700 or $100 extra than, the 128 model, might as well compare them because the both of these phones, obviously, it's not even a fair comparison because Apple obviously is leagues ahead of OnePlus in the sense of software, design and, chipset especially. So, let's see how this goes. The only way actually, yeah, let's get into it. So, we're comparing the iPhone mini or the iPhone 12 mini and the iPhone or OnePlus 8T, sorry. Might as well include the iPhone 12 because it's the identical phone to the iPhone 12 mini. It's just the size that's really a difference. So when it comes to the OnePlus 8T, the reason why I'm comparing it to the iPhone 12 mini, even though it's the same thing as the 12, and I can just compare it to the 12, is because the 12 is around $700 or $800. In the sense of pricing, it's $800. So it's not necessarily in the same price bracket because it's kind of in the $800 to $1,000 kind of price range. I'm trying to stick with 600 to 700, which is what the OnePlus 8T and the iPhone 12 mini is around. So when it comes to the comparing them, they both have Gorilla Glass on the front and the back, although Apple is claiming that they have the strongest glass on any smartphone. Let's just wait and see because I mean, glass is glass and glass is gonna break, no matter what. So I, I'm not entirely doubting that it's a strong glass, but I highly doubt that it's the strongest glass on any smartphone, considering that Samsung has the strongest glass on any smartphone. So it's always this kind of battle that Samsung and Apple always do, that they're just like, we have the strongest glass. No, we have the strongest glass. Now we have the strongest. Now it's an ongoing fight that never ends. And quite frankly, it doesn't seem it's not, there's no visible ending of this feud anytime soon. So let's just get over that. When it comes to the Apple iPhone 12 mini, you get IP68 water and dust resistant up to 6 meters for 30 minutes. So you get a very impressive IP rating. And compared to the 8T, you don't even have an IP rating. So that's unfortunate. When it comes to the displays, they're both AMOLED displays, but Apple, they like to have this kind of fancy new name for all the displays, even though they're the same old displays that Samsung and OnePlus and all these Android phones have been using for years. And quite frankly, they've been better than Apple's own displays, um, up until when Apple partnered with Samsung to bring the AMOLED displays to Apple, the Samsung displays to Apple, sorry. So, they call it the Super Retina XDR display. It's pretty much an OLED display. They like to make a big deal out of nothing, so um, it's nothing new there, really. It is new for the iPhone 12, considering it's an upgrade from the iPhone 11, because the iPhone 11 had an LCD display versus this one, which has an OLED display. And if you don't know the difference between an OLED and an LCD, it's basically better quality of a display with the AMOLED. So AMOLED, you're going to get better colors, better contrast, deeper blacks that are actually true blacks, because with the AMOLED display, when it comes to showing black colors, it turns off the actual pixels, so you get real blacks. And so you are going to get an overall better viewing experience. You get better viewing angles and all of that. So you do get a very good display. Honestly, nothing new for me. I've always had an AMOLED display, a Super AMOLED display. And so it's always been a very beautiful device to kind of watch content on. And for me, I've always experienced AMOLED displays, and I really do not enjoy looking at LCDs because it hurts my eyes because of the quality is so bad. But anyway, um, so when it comes to the sizes, it's a 5.4-inch compared to the OnePlus 8T's 6.55-inch display. You are getting a little bit better resolution on the OnePlus 8T with 1080p 2400 resolution compared to the iPhone 12 mini of 1080p by 2340. So you are getting a little bit better resolution on the 8T, but with the PPI density, you're getting 476 on the iPhone mini versus the OnePlus 8T with 402. And PPI density pretty much just means that the higher the number, the better looking display that you are going to have, because you are getting more resolution in that panel. So in this case, you are getting more pixels per inch in the iPhone 12 mini. So your pictures and content is going to look a lot sharper and a lot more detailed, but not by much. Not You won't even notice the difference, to be honest. When it comes to the protection or the screen quality, you do get Dolby Vision, which is great. If you don't know what Dolby Vision is, it's pretty much enhanced viewing for phones, right? And Dolby is honestly a very good company for entertainment when it comes to sound, obviously vision and all of that, right? When it comes to entertainment. And so you do get that, which is great to see. For the platform, as much as it pains me to say this, the Apple A14 Bionic is here, and it's scary because the Apple A14 Bionic is the fastest processor on any mobile phone right now, and I can't deny it. I'm a Samsung user, and I've loved Samsung. I like Android overall ish, and it hurts me to say this, but the Apple A14 Bionic, and for the majority of the part, I think ever since the iPhone 6 or the iPhone 7, the Apple Bionic chip has always been a better processor, a more powerful processor than the Exynos and the Snapdragon. Not combined, but separately. When you compare the when you compare the Apple Bionic chip compared to the latest Snapdragon, it's one generation ahead. When you compare it to the Exynos, it's again, well, in this case, it's 2 generations ahead for the Exynos, because the Exynos is a little bit behind, but Samsung is working on that because they're gonna release uh, a very powerful processor that it's gonna rival the A14 Bionic chip, because the A14 Bionic chip runs on the 5 nanometer processor, and so Samsung is gonna be calling the Exynos 2100. I don't know why they're calling it that, but It's gonna be a 5 nanometer processor, so it's gonna rival the A14 Bionic. It's gonna be almost up to par pretty much with the performance, so I am excited to see that. For the OS, you are getting iOS 14, which is the latest from Apple, and you get Android 11 and Oxygen OS 11 from OnePlus 8T. So you are getting the latest software on both of these devices and the latest processor, respectively, on each phone. And when it comes to the graphics, obviously, for as long as I've known technology, and honestly, even before that, the Apple GPU system has always been better than any Android phone out there. The graphics are always better. The loading speeds are better. The gameplay is around equal for sure. It's definitely a little bit smoother on Android phones with 120 hertz because you do get more frame rates. So when it comes to actual gameplay, it's as smooth as the iPhone, if not a little bit better. But when it comes to loading times, the Apple A14 always, or the Apple Bionic chip always manages to be the first one to load the game because it's just a very powerful GPU and CPU. As a whole, the processor is very powerful. So when it comes to the internal storage, you get you really only get you get 3 kind of configurations. You get 64 gigabytes of internal storage with all the models of the 12 mini or you can go with 4 gigabytes of RAM, like always, nothing new there. Or you can pay a little bit more and get the 128 and pay a lot more for the 256 gigabytes of internal storage. But all of these storage configurations come with the same 4 gigabytes of RAM versus 12 gigabytes of RAM on the OnePlus 8T and 256 gigabytes of internal storage right out of the box. So you don't need to pay extra for that. So you do get that. For the camera modules, you get 2 cameras on the iPhone 12 mini as well as the iPhone 12, and you do get that 120 degree. You get a 12 megapixel f1.6 dual pixel autofocus with optical image stabilization. You do get that normal primary shooter, and it's the same megapixel count on the iPhone 12. And with the 12 mini, you get a 12 megapixel f2.4 120 degree field of view ultra wide lens, and that's the same one on the iPhone 12 with the same aperture and the same 120 degree field of view. So you do get that, and so you get a wider ultra wide lens on the OnePlus 8T with 123 degree field of view, and you get a 16 megapixel lens instead of a 12. But again, megapixels are not everything. They don't tell the whole story. When it comes to shooting pictures and videos, the iPhone is always going to be better than, I think, every other Android phone. Even Samsung. Samsung is the only one that comes close to, or it's the only one that rivals Apple's video taking and picture taking software, when it comes to that. And so we see that, Apple and Samsung always are in some sort of rivalry. And when it comes to video recording, and when it comes to the rest of the cameras for the OnePlus 8T, you get a 48 megapixel normal lens and obviously dual pixel autofocus and OIS, and you do get the same thing on the other on the other iPhone 12 mini and the normal iPhone 12. You get 4K recording at 24, 60, or 30 frames per second, and 1080p's 30, 60 frames per second HDR, and you can record in Dolby Vision HDR up to 30 frames per second, because the 60 frames per second is saved for the 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max. and you get stereo sound recording. So all of this for the iPhone 12 mini is insane. And you get similar capabilities with the OnePlus 8T. You get 4K at 30 and 60, 1080p at 30, 60 frames per second with auto HDR, but you do not get the Dolby Vision HDR and you do not get stereo sound recording. So you do get the stereo sound recording, the Dolby Vision HDR, 30 frames per second. You also get that on the normal iPhone 12, not just the iPhone 12 mini. Like I told you guys, every specification on the 12 mini is practically identical to that of the iPhone 12. The only difference is the size, and if I'm not mistaken, the battery as well. So when it comes to battery life, you are getting a bigger battery on the OnePlus with the 4,500 milliamp hour battery. But for some reason, Apple did not mention the sizes of their batteries. So we currently do not have that information to give to you. And I can't really tell you how much battery it is with numbers because I do not have that information. Apple did not tell us about the numbers, which is a little bit skeptical. But with charging, you do get 20 watt fast charging, so you get 50% in 30 minutes with the iPhone 12 mini and iPhone 12, and you get fast wireless charging at 15 watts only with a MagSafe. So if you guys want to go watch that on the Apple's kind of website, you can definitely go do that and see what MagSafe is. I'm not going to explain it because it's a lot of work and I'm already kind of running out of time. So anyway, you do get that, so that's pretty cool. And you get the same 15-watt charging on the iPhone 12 as well, not just the iPhone 12 mini. And so when it comes to the colors, you get only two colors on the OnePlus 8T, aquamarine green and lunar silver, where on the normal iPhone 12 and the iPhone 12 mini, you get black, white, red, green, blue, which is a navy kind of blue, I think. Actually, it's called Pacific blue because it's more of a lighter blue. But you do get a navy blue on the Pro models. So we will be talking about the Pro models later. Not today, later. Probably tomorrow for sure. Because there's a lot to talk about. And so between the iPhone 12 and the iPhone 12 mini, it's up to you. You can choose. The only difference is screen sizes. Everything else is practically the same except for the battery, because you do get, I think, yeah, I don't know if it's going to be the same size battery, but you do have similar charging, so that's fine, which is at 20 watts compared to OnePlus 8T, which is 65 watts. But I don't think you'll miss it too much. With the iPhone 12 mini compared to the OnePlus 8T, personally, if you like bigger phones or you like Android phones, go with the 8T. But if you are more of an iOS user, go with the iPhone 12 mini, unless you don't like that size. With the iPhone 12, you get a 6.1-inch display. 6.1-inch display compared to the iPhone 12 mini, which has a 5.4-inch display. So definitely, if you want to get a feel for the sizes, go in your store, maybe your carrier store. They'll most likely have the phones up. Maybe not right now, but I'm not sure. I think it's going to hit stores later around November 13th. So around November 13th, you guys can go check it out in stores or in your carriers. You can find the iPhone 12 and the iPhone 12 mini and see which one you like as a size. So you guys can go definitely check that out. So I know you're probably tired of hearing me. I am tired of hearing myself as well. And I've been talking for way too long to the point where my throat feels sore and my lungs are tired. It's a little hot in my room, so I feel like I might pass out from, a heat stroke or something. But anyway, we keep pushing through because I love producing this content for you guys. So if you're on my YouTube channel, this is where it's going to end for you. If you want to check out more of my podcast, go to either Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find your music. I'm most likely going to be there, except SoundCloud. SoundCloud, I'm not on there. I'm on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, and all of those. You can find me online as well as on Anchor. You can find it. It's called Self Quarantine Sucks. And so, for those who aren't aware of my podcast, go check it out. And for those of you who are listening on my podcast, that was the end of this segment, and I'm about to go do my intro. So I'll talk, or outro. I'll talk to you guys a little bit more right after this.